Hi, welcome back. Dara here again. I hope you enjoyed the first part of the series where I built a recipe app from scratch. If you haven't watched it yet, I'll include the link above for you. This video is the second part of the program. Previously, what was built so far was a tab user interface that switched between the main screens of the app. The home screen presents a list of recipes in the form of cards with images stored remotely. Each card can be redirected to a specific recipe outlining its details. The recipes can also be accessed from the category screen where the recipes are filtered by type of meal. All that was for browsing purposes. From here on, we will work on adding a new recipe starting with a form. To follow along in coding, make sure to complete the last episode. Create a new SwiftUI file under Detail. Call Add Recipe View. This view consists of a form with input fields in which the user can write text and a selection field for the category. A form stores all the user inputs for us, so it's perfect. Let's show the preview with Option Command Enter. Resume. Adjust the size. Let's add a navigation view. And as a child, a form view. Set the navigation title to New Recipe. And the navigation bar title displayed to inline. Same as before, make sure to change the navigation view style to stack to silence the constraint error. In the form, I decided to use the section views header as the label for the input fields. We're going to add 5 section views with the headers name, category, description, ingredients, and directions. For the first one, add a section view with the header, a text view for name. Copy this and paste 4 times. And change the second one to category, here to description, ingredients, and finally directions. For the recipe name, add a simple input with text field. Choose the one with title and text. It accepts the title and a binding string. Remember that binding is 2 ways. We don't only want to read the value, but we also want to accept the user input as feedback. Set the title to recipe name. And as for the text, create a new private state variable for name. Add state private var name of type string with the default value of an empty string. While we're here, we'll take this opportunity to add the other states as well. Copy this line and paste 4 more times. The second one is selected category. The type is category, and we'll default this to the main category. The third one is description. Fourth is ingredients. And the last one is directions. Then we can pass the name as text. A binding argument is recognized by the $sign in front. By the way, these states are used within this view only, therefore being private. So Apple recommends that you declare these variables as private, hence the word private. Let's resume the preview. For the second input, we can create a picker to let the user select the category based on the enumeration defined before. Once again, we're able to loop through all the categories. Picker. Title is category. The selection is the binding variable, selected category. For the content, for each category dot all cases, category in. We're going to display a text view with the category's raw value. Let's try to run the preview. So I select the appetizer, but it doesn't do anything. Let me try to explain this. As per Apple documentation, for each automatically assigns a tag to the selection views using each option's ID. It's supposed to work, but as you can see, the selection is not saved after tapping on the selected category. So add the tag modifier anyway and pass in category. Let's try this again. Now the selection is saved properly. Next, I want to change the picker style to menu. Sweet. For the remaining 3 fields, use the text editor for the input field. It's appropriate for a long text spanning many lines and even adjust to the length of the text. Think of it like an input area for the web. Here, text editor. Pass in the binding description. Same thing. Pass in the binding ingredients. The last one. Binding directions. Let's check it out. I can't use my keyboard, but I can use here. So weird. Next, let's add 2 buttons on each side of the navigation bar. The left one is to cancel the form filling, and the right one is to submit the form. Back to Xcode, add the toolbar modifier to the form. Enter. We will use the toolbar item to contain the buttons. Toolbar item. The placement will be dot navigation bar leading. The first item, it's a button view with the label of cancel and system image X mark. Leave the action empty for now. Although we don't see the label, but just in case, I'd want to set the label style to show the icon only. I don't even know if it's necessary or not. The second item is the same, so we'll copy the toolbar item. This one, the label is done, and the system image is check mark. Remove the placement here. One more thing, it doesn't make sense to let the user save a recipe if at least the name is not entered, right? Therefore, disable the submit button if the name is empty. It's time to run the simulator, but first we're gonna have to go to the tab bar and change the new recipe view to add recipe view. Not bad. As you can see, these buttons have no actions yet. Now, if there's no value in the first input field, name, look at that. The Done button is grayed out as expected. All right, let's reverse back this one. We'll try to get to the form in the right way. We'll add a button from New Recipe View instead. Go to New Recipe View. Replace the text with the button that says Add Recipe manually. For the action, we want to mount the Add Recipe view as a sheet when the user taps on it. .sheet is presented. The sheet modifier accepts an argument of type binding boolean, so we need to add a state variable show add recipe. At state private var show add recipe with the beginning value of false, meaning the sheet won't show at first on this screen. Here, pass in show add recipe with no dismiss action, and the content is the add recipe view. Then change show add recipe to true in the action closure of the button. Or you can do toggle too if you want. Let's test it out. Resume. Let's take care of this button now to dismiss the sheet. Let's re-indent this and add a line here. Go back to Add Recipe View. What's cool about a sheet is that you can automatically dismiss it by dragging it down, but you should also allow the user to do it by tapping on a button. Luckily, we have already created the Cancel button for which we haven't set any action yet. Since iOS 15, SwiftUI provides a handler to dismiss a presentation. That handler is made available in the environment value. So let's retrieve it, dismiss, and assign it to a dismiss variable. Now call that dismiss function in the action closure of the Cancel button. Let's test it out. Go to New Recipe View. Awesome. Next, let's take care of the other toolbar button. What do we want to do? Let's think. After entering the form, the user submits it to push the new recipe to the list. UX-wise, we should redirect the user to the new recipe screen. In the second toolbar item, add a navigation link. Choose the option that says is active, destination, and label, because we want to activate it only when the Done button is tapped. Is active is of type binding boolean, so this should be already familiar to you. Let's create a new state variable. Navigate to recipe with the default value of false. Now go back down. Let's use it here. And switch its value to true in the button's action closure. Navigate to recipe is equal to true. The destination is the recipe view. Whose recipe is the most recent of the list, sorted by date publish. It's here that we finally use the date publish from our recipe data model. To sort an array, use the sorted function. So .sorted $0 .datePublish is greater than $1 .datePublish. The 0 and 1 are the elements to compare in the sequence. We'll retrieve the first one of the series. Since it wouldn't make sense to allow the user to come back to the form sheet, we should hide the navigation back bar button. Navigation back bar button hidden and set it to true. And now the whole button here becomes the label to the navigation link. Run the app. Go to the new tab, click on this button, and then submit the form. Wrapping the button with navigation link somehow overrides the button disabling. The button is grayed out, but the link is active when clicked on it. I was able to navigate to the recipe view. To fix this, just move the disabled modifier to the navigation link instead. Run the app again. Let's try to click this, and now it works. Yay! Try to fill in some data. Click on Done, and you'll see on your screen the latest recipe, not the one you just added. What's going on? Well, the reason is that the array of recipes is hard-coded. Not only that, it can only be read as all in the recipe model. It's a let constant. In the next step, we will need to restructure a little bit our data in order to allow editing. So far, we've been managing with data that are static and hard-coded. Let's turn them dynamic. That way, we'll be able to add, edit, or delete the recipe from the list. First things first, a bit of remodeling is required. There are different design patterns out there. The one I like is the MVVM pattern. MVVM stands for Model, View, View Model. In short, the model holds the data and business logic, whereas the view displays and manages all the UI elements. The view model, on the other hand, takes care of the presentation logic and acts as the middleman between the view and the model. As a result, the view cannot communicate directly with the model. This makes the application more organized and set up for cleaner code. Trust me, when your app scales and there are already a couple hundred of lines of code in the view file, adding more logic in there would be hard to follow and manage. Up till here, the view model was the missing link in our application. Let's add a view model for the recipes. Create a new Swift file under the View Models folder. Name it Recipes View Model. Add a new class, Recipes View Model. That conforms to the observable object. Observable object is part of the combined framework that lets any object become a publisher, and when added to a view, it notifies the view of its changes. In other words, the view is a subscriber and is watching for changes to know whether it should update its UI. Declare a variable recipes of type recipe array with the default value of an empty array. Prefix it with the property wrapper at published. This is to announce to its subscribers when its value has changed. Also add private set to prevent anything other than this class to update its value. When the class is initialized with init, this is where we usually fetch data from a real database. In this app though, we'll just read the same recipes as before. So let's populate the recipes variables with recipe.all. When should the view model be initialized? When the app launches, since we only want the recipes to be populated once at the starting point. Go to Recipe Saver app, declare a StateObject variable, recipes view model, and initialize it with the class recipes view model. StateObject indicates that it'll follow the life cycle of the app. Indeed, as mentioned earlier, I just want to initialize the view model once, and that's when the app launches. Note that SwiftUI will reserve a separate memory for this object. Add an EnvironmentObject modifier to the content view and pass in the new variable. This will let any child of content view to access the view model. Now, wherever we use recipe.all, we will have to replace it with the data from the view model instead. Let's do a search. In the home view, declare the variable recipes VM of type recipes view model. We'll use a different property wrapper this time at EnvironmentObject. At EnvironmentObject suggests that the observable object was supplied by the parent view. I tend to abbreviate view model by VM. This is just a personal preference. Now we can change recipe.all for the argument of the recipe list. We will need to add the EnvironmentObject modifier in the preview, otherwise the preview will crash. There you go. And pass in recipes view model initialized. Let's go to the next result. We're using recipe.all in the preview, so let's ignore it. In the category view, let's do the same. As well as in add recipe view. Let's go over the next result. Preview, all good. There are two more views that we need to add the environment object in the preview. Can you guess which ones are those? Let me give you a hint. They are the parent views of these views that are using the recipes view model. That's right. They're the content view and the tab bar. Now let's correct that. Recipes view model. Dot environment object recipes view model. If I resume, it works. At last, we have finally set up everything and ready to save a new recipe to the collection. We will add the functionalities to both the view and the view model to make this happen. In the recipes view model, let's create a new function, add recipe. The argument will be recipes of type recipe. What do we want to do? We want to append the new recipe to the array. That's it. Then go to Add Recipe View and create an extension to the view to separate the logic from the UI. Extension Add Recipe View. Inside it, add a private function, private func save recipe, and call the view models function recipes vm dot add recipe. Now let's create a new instance of recipe with all the states saved from the input fields. Initialize it. All the properties are from the states, except that the image, URL, and date publish are an empty string. We'll take care of date publish in a bit. Now we can call this function when the user taps on the Done button. Save recipe. The last matter to take care of is the publish date. We do need to sort the recipes and retrieve the latest one. It's a bit more intricate, this one. So go to the save recipe function. We're going to get the current date and time, and there's a function for that. Let's declare a variable now and call date. To format the date to conform to our date model, we're going to need the date formatter. Let date formatter, it's called initialize the date formatter. And we're going to set the date format to YYYYMMDD. Now we're going to read the string version of the date object and store it in date publish. Date formatter dot string from now. Let's print the result for us to see. And finally, this, instead of an empty string, we're gonna use the constant. Let's run the simulator for the last time and try to save the recipe. Go to the new tab, add recipe manually. I chose a recipe from Forks Over Knives that is not too complicated. This is the title, copy, paste, description, paste, ingredients, paste, and finally the instructions. Paste. This recipe is a dessert. The date associated to this recipe is the current date and time. Now submit. Nice. Okay, let's go to the home view and see if it's added to the list. It's missing a picture, but oh well, We finally completed everything that I wanted to implement. I believe I gave you enough to go on with and not just bits and pieces. Did you like it? I hope you find this mini course helpful. If you do, click on the like button and share to support our work. Thanks for watching.